presented May 29th, 2005 at the Platte Valley Community Picnic and Celebration to cover the history of our school built in 1928. My name is Lori Van Pelt, and I've lived here in the Valley for 12 years. I'm a local author and historian, and my in-laws, Eugene and Marilyn Walk, both attended school here, so it's my great pleasure to open this program. Before we begin, we want to give credit to our filmmakers for all of their hard work, Kim and Peggy Lorenzen for scanning the pictures, and Mr. Jared Mason and Saratoga High School students for adding the sound. We certainly appreciate your endeavors. The Historical Committee has gathered pictures and information to share with you now. And it's my pleasure to invite you to relax and sit back and enjoy this review of the past 80 years of our school's history.
I'm Julie Evans. My mother, Elva Evans, and I will present to you some of the people, places, and events from the 1930s and 40s. This beautiful brick building with its wide windows was Saratoga's first four-year high school. It was the pride of the community when it was built in 1926. For Saratoga, the first time it had a thoroughly modern school with lights, running water, and a coal furnace. It contained 4 classrooms, an office, and a small sunken gym with stage. In 1924, Paul Brenneman, a rancher's son who wanted to become a petroleum engineer, became the first graduate of Saratoga High School. Saratoga had school children only through the 10th grade until then. In the mid-1920s, the state of Wyoming had newfound oil royalties to help finance schools, but in return for state monies, it mandated a 9-month school term. This brick grade school was built in 1928. 6 classrooms surrounded a gym. Saratoga schools were on their way to becoming a first-rate institution. This was the 1928 basketball team coached by Duke DeForest. They played in the grade school gym where their fans perched on high bleachers that were fastened to the walls. Wearing the original school colors, regal purple and gold, these girls formed the Pep Club of 1937 and cheered the Panthers on. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of some of these Pepsters have also attended Saratoga High School. When World War II struck, a patriotic fervor engulfed small towns all over the U.S. Many Saratoga young men enlisted as soon as they reached age 18, and some went off to war before that. In 1944, all the senior boys were enlisted with the U.S. Armed Forces, so the 10 girls in the class graduated alone. Undistracted, they all achieved a 90% grade point average. It was late during the 1930s Depression when the school lunch program started. Elda Thomas was its first head cook. Hot meals were 10 cents each. However, due to rationing, meat was scarce, so the superintendent made arrangements with the Game and Fish to allow selected high school boys to harvest older deer for the lunchroom.
Hi, I'm Larry Vivy. My wife Caroline and I both went to school in the 1928 building, as did our children and most of our grandchildren. Welcome to the 1950s, the beginning of rock and roll, the times of the drive-in movies, hula hoops, yo-yos, marbles, ducktails, short shorts, and sack dresses. The first picture shows high school girls hanging out in front of the old high school building, which was near the 1928 elementary school and the white first and second grade buildings shown in the picture. This is a boys' basketball game inside the 1928 building gymnasium, showing the spectator balcony and the band on the stage. This gym was remodeled and is currently used as the middle school library. This is the 1955 Chevy
I'm Bob Randall. I came to Saratoga High School in 1962 as a science teacher. And during the 1970s, I was a principal in Saratoga schools. It's my pleasure to narrate those photos of both the 60s and the 70s. We begin our story of the 60s with a late 1950s photograph of the class of 1968. The 1964 graduating class contained football champs, royalty, cheerleaders, district and state players, scholars, homemakers, musicians, future teachers, artists, and debaters. Big shoes to fill by future graduates. The Future Homemakers, FHA, was a big and active organization. Basketball was an important part of the school life in the 60s. The 70s was a time of strong school spirit and winning athletic teams. Parents were an important part of the cheering section. Sometimes mothers could be the loudest voices in the bleachers, as this photo shows. The Saratoga Panthers were a wrestling powerhouse in the 70s. They were third in the state in 1973, state champs in 1974, which is pictured, and champs in 1975, second in 1976, and state champs again in 1977. The 1974 yearbook recognized Coach Mike Colentes as the man who made it all possible. Football in 1973 was a rebuilding year. Coach Colentes taped a "No Guts" sign on each player's helmet to be removed when they won their first game, which occurred on homecoming. No Guts came off and a legend was born. By 1975, the Panthers under Coach Colentes were 8-0 with only 6 points scored against them. They were rated as one of the top 2 teams in the state. There were no state playoffs that year. In 1976, they lost to Pinedale in the first ever state playoff. The Panthers were co-conference champs in 1977. Rick Hughes is shown carrying the ball in one of the games. Although Saratoga no longer has cheerleaders, they were an integral part of the sports in the 70s. In 1973, there were 6 cheerleaders, 6 pom-pom girls, and a mascot. Even the junior high school had cheerleaders, as this photo shows. As women's athletics gained popularity, pep clubs began to dwindle and by 1977 had disappeared altogether. Speech teams were coached by Mrs. Simmons. The 1972 speech team shows off their trophies. Note the student dress, from miniskirts to go-go boots and hip-hugger pants. Band was an important part of school life. Junior high students from Saratoga, Encampment, Hanna, and Medicine Bow joined together in this concert in the old high school gym in Saratoga. Freshman initiation was part of school life. The freshmen were slaves of their senior masters for one day. They had to dress up as dictated by the seniors. At the end of the day, they were expected to perform a skit in front of the entire student body. Thus, we end the decade of the 70s.
I'm Teens Wilford, and I attended class in the 1928 building from the 3rd grade through the 8th grade. I graduated from the 8th grade in this building, wrote and sang the graduation song. My 2 older brothers attended school here, as well as my 3 children. My mother taught here in the 1940s, and my father served on the school board for many years. I have deep ties to this proud old building and many wonderful memories. In the 1940s, my mother, Jo Wilford, and my aunt, Lorene Mowry, presented a number of operettas in this building. In the 1980s, Barbara Johnson revised the custom, starting with Hansel and Gretel, pictured here, followed by Robin Hood and Alice in Wonderland. What courage that took. Notice the intricate staging. The 80s were exciting times of new, innovative programs. Rod Laird introduced the primitive weapon, the atlatl, to the 6th grade class. His book, The Atlatl, a how-to book written in 1984, launched it into a national sport. We credit the Saratoga Sun, Rollins Daily Times, and our Valley History Laureate, Dick Peru, for such great coverage of new school events, especially the atlatl. These are a few of the competitors and winners of the handmade cedar fence post trophies. The Teton Science Camp held in Jackson in the winter was an annual trip for several years in the 80s and the 90s. My son Mark won a trophy for identifying the most kinds of animal scat manure. I was so proud. The SEEK program introduced the future problem solvers. It was a very challenging mental sport, which was dependent upon teamwork, research skills, writing skills, and high-level thinking. Saratoga's teams, under the direction of Judy Babel and Rod Laird, competed in state events and twice in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in St. Louis. Pictured are members of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teams, winners in 1989. Students challenged to invent education games, shown here with their geography game. As you can see from this picture, as we advance over the years, the technology gets better. This is the operetta Robin Hood, and it shows more of the diverse talents involved in producing these musical programs. Pictured here is Alice in Wonderland. Note the festive costumes and look at the short pants on the Mad Hatter.
My name is Judd Campbell. I will narrate the last 2 decades of the show. Having lived in Saratoga for 28 years, I spent a great deal of time in the middle school building. The SEEK program continued into the 90s with teacher Judy Babel taking her students on to win 4 state championships. The motto shown on these student shirts is French for "Hold on tight to your dreams," a song of the 80s by ELO. Another winning team of future problem solvers. Loading up for the bus to go hit the Teton Science Camp. Here's another picture of the kids up at the Teton Science Camp in Jackson. Another team of the Saratoga Middle School Panthers. This group of kids were able to enjoy the science camp in Moab, Utah. Another picture of kids getting ready for a hike in Moab. This is the last 6th grade class of Saratoga Middle School. This year's 7th grade class. The 2004-2005 middle school 8th grade class.
This is Leslie Johnson speaking for the Historical Committee. Saratoga is a proud community, proud of our past and excited about our future. Thank you for your interest in our program.